Phil Perry, Tom Curran. We are Training Camp Central, brought to you by the Oakers Company. And, you know, it was good to get back to work. It wasn't high intensity. It is an extension of OTAs and minicamps. But, Phil, there's a vibe to this team. Not that they're going to be playoff bound, but there's an energy.
Yeah, I always have a good time at training camp. I love these camps. I love sitting on the hill with you and making our observations and doing what we do. But you're right, a lot of excitement, especially on the offensive side. Maybe because this time of year really helps the offense more than the defense, Tom. But they made some plays today, and they let the defense know it.
Yeah, they did. And it was interesting because as much as this is a continuation of minicamp, and really OTAs to an extent as well, there is competition going on, and there was some lording it over the defense done by the offense. We're going to get into that, but the interesting thing today was the opportunity to talk to Mac Jones about the offense that we have had so much in our crosshairs throughout this offseason. And here's what Mac Jones had to say about ownership of the offense and the construct of the offense since McDaniels is gone.
They all are trying to get us to work together, and that's the most important part is we're all on the same page regardless of who's talking, who's making a decision on a play or whatnot, and it's always an open conversation, which I love.
You feel ownership in terms of, hey, they're coming to me, they want my
Yeah, at the end of the day, the players play and the coaches coach, and you want to listen to the good coaching that you can get from 3 coaches who've all been head coaches. So they've seen a ton of football, and that's what I'm just trying to take in is what is something that each one of them says in a meeting that I can take with me, whether that's about life or football, and then apply it to the game. And like I said, they all bring a different perspective, but I feel like they're listening to the players. Hey, we kind of like this concept. All right, let's try it. Or if they, want to put in something else, they explain the why. And that's the important part for me is understanding why we're doing something. And from there, as a player, my job is to go execute the plays.
All right, and as we continue to interrogate how the Patriots offense is going to look in 2022, I think what we end up coming back to, despite all our arm waving over who might be in charge and who might not be in charge and the roles they play, it is going to be a collaboration, Phil. And
it
Mac's
is
part of it.
And it should be. And that, to me, if I'm a Patriots fan, would be encouraging to hear Mac Jones say that it's an open conversation and that there is a dialogue there and it is not the Socratic method where, someone is just laying everything on you at once. And I look at this comment from Mac Jones and I say, he's the guy who should have a lot of input, especially this year. And so that, to me, is a positive development from today. We've been saying that for a long time. To hear it from him today, I think, is important.
Yeah, and I think when we look at the Patriots in general, Mac has as much experience, as Phil pointed out yesterday, as anybody in the place, except for Bill Belichick and Brian Hoyer. Mac has been running this offense and really trying to get it into the positions where he wants it to be and evolve with him at the core since last year. Patricia was not. Joe Judge was not. So when we look at this team and Mac's ownership of it, what did you detect different from him as he begins his second training camp that you didn't see at the beginning of 2021?
Well, I think there's just a level of confidence that you didn't see at the beginning of 2021, right? He's a rookie. He's just trying to fit in. He's trying to win a job. Cam Newton is there, and we saw it a lot. We saw a lot of emoting from Cam Newton early last camp, the likes of which we saw today from Mac Jones. I thought there was some lighthearted celebration, which we already have gone over a little bit, but there was a little bit of goofiness, but I think it just shows, Tom, that he's confident. We saw him in between periods kind of coaching up receivers at one point about their release near the line of scrimmage, as that was a focus today. I saw him with his arm around Matt Patricia in between periods at one point in time. He's just a much different person now than he was 12 months ago, and that should pay dividends as we go through camp here.
Yeah, if you look back at some of the reporting we were doing last year, was Mac Jones was in a position where he was very much the tennis kid that we were told he was. Things would go bad. He'd be down on himself. He'd be over by himself. He'd be kicking rocks. I mean, it was interesting to watch his development throughout camp. Now he understands what he's getting into. And what he's getting into also, as we saw today, which has been the focal point, and the main observation from this first practice was that we could tell who was the play caller on this day. And we would probably surmise that that play caller, Phil, would carry on through. What did we see?
We saw Matt Patricia with the walkie-talkie and a play sheet in his hand and him speaking into the walkie-talkie. Mac Jones very clearly listening and then giving a play to the huddle. So Matt Patricia looks like the front runner, to be the play caller for the New England Patriots in 2022, and Tom, the de facto offensive coordinator. And something that was different today that we did not see in the spring, even though this is a continuation of what we saw in the spring, was Matt Patricia leave the offensive line.
Right.
He called some plays in the spring when they went into 11-on-11 situations, but he was never away from the line. There was a period of practice today during 7-on-7s where Matt Patricia was about 200 yards away from the closest offensive lineman. And so that, to me, again, is another indication he is going to be the boss offensively right underneath Bill Belichick.
Yeah, so Billy Yates will be the offensive line coach. I think that is what we're starting to conclude, and we can pretty much declare. Billy Yates will be the offensive line coach. Matt Patricia will most likely be the offensive coordinator and play caller. And in doing that, Phil, what did you observe from Bill Belichick, who really was involved quite a bit during the mini camps? Was Bill as involved in your estimation?
Well, he wasn't
today?
calling plays the way he was at times in the spring, but he was very involved, I would say, offensively in doing what Bill Belichick does, which is bounce from one position group to the next, though I noticed it a lot on the offensive side. So we saw him and the camera guys, Bill Messina, did a great job, Glenn Gleason as well, of capturing Bill Belichick after watching a Tyquan Thornton route that he did not like, go over to the receivers, stop the drill, show on Troy Brown running a route in slow motion himself and how to separate when you get to the top of your route what the proper technique was. And that's not something that we've seen a whole lot of. On the offensive side, that hasn't been his thing. Him going and talking to the corners or the safeties or the linebackers, yes, but he's going to be doing much more of that offensively now.
I want to hammer this observation a little bit more because I saw him spend nearly 3 minutes with Ramondre Stevenson speaking to him after an 11-on-11 red zone drill. 3 minutes is a long time during those practices. And it seemed as if he was gesturing. I don't think it was a bitch session, but he was gesturing as to what he wanted from him. Matt Patricia was lurking nearby, obviously, as we've said, also an offensive coach. But Bill Belichick is devoting an immense amount of time to the offense. We saw it in the spring. We saw it more today. When we look at the Patriots' schedule and the fact that they're going to have to keep up with the Bills and the fact that they're going to have to keep up with the Miami Dolphins, they got to score. They damn well better score. Is that part of the reasoning that Bill might be over there?
Well, I think it's the fact that you lost Josh McDaniels, too. And Bill Belichick probably looks at Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick and some of the other defensive coaches and says, okay, I know these guys are young, but at least they've been in these jobs and at least they've been on this side of the ball. We don't necessarily have that on the other side of the ball, and we have a second-year quarterback on top of it, and we have important young players on the offensive side, young and also new to our program players, whether it's Devontae Parker.
Yep.
Why do I want to say Devontae Patrick? Devontae Parker, I don't know. And
I
Kendrick
could do
Bourne.
anything.
First day of camp for everybody, right? We're all trying to get in the mix
It's been
here.
a long time.
So he has to be on that side. And to your point, yes, they're going to have to outscore teams because they have a better chance of trying to do that than maybe stopping some of those high-powered offenses, given the talent they have on the defensive side.
Overall feel with camp today, we kind of hit on it. High energy. The team was enthused. Give me a couple, for instances, that you observed about this high energy.
Well, towards the end of the practice, Mac Jones hit Nelson Aguilar on what might have been the best throw of the day. Very much a red zone focused day, and so you saw a lot of throws that were floated to the back corner of the end zone. And Mac Jones, that's something that we know he can do. He has that sort of accuracy and that sort of touch. But his best throw came towards the end. Nelson Aguilar goes up and gets it, beats Malcolm Butler for a touchdown. Big old celebration after the fact. He hits Damian Harris for another soon thereafter, and the defense has to do 10 push-ups. That was a good snapshot of the day.
One thing that I found interesting was very early in the practice, actually when the players were coming out, Robert Kraft was on the field glad-handing the players as they came out. Look, Robert is a fixture at these practices anyway, but as the players were coming out, he stood there and shook hands with all of them. And what I find interesting about this is not me saying Robert's trying to prove, hey, I'm in charge here. But I think there has been a family atmosphere to this team for a long time. Corny as it may seem, I think it's genuine. And for him to be out there and welcome these players who are either new by draft, new by free agency, or in their second year, being a presence there, I think matters to him, matters to this team, because it's part of their identity, and it's part of what will make them good this year.